Hi, on this page for prompt 3, you'll find my educational issues. One of the issues that I found very important to research during my graduate program was social and emotional learning, or SEL. For the agenda for this slide for prompt 3 is what is SEL? I'll give you a definition of that, pros and cons for SEL, any challenges that are faced with it, views on SEL, and how I use it in my classroom, the prevalence of it in my school. So, social emotional learning is an essential part of the development of children, helps them grow into adults who are able to self regulate, problem solve, have impulse control, and manage their emotions. There are five main areas that are self awareness, self management, responsible decision making, relationship skills, and social awareness. I have seen in my classroom since COVID that there is such a need for social emotional learning. We've seen children come back who are stressed, who do not know how to manage themselves. They have difficulty problem solving. And part of this stems from them being home during that time and not having those interactions that they normally would have had, like at second or at being 2 years or 3 years old. And it's even to the point where, like, daily I have to remind my students, like, we need to control our minds, control our bodies, and think about the ways to manage our emotions. The pros of an SEL program, it is definitely an integral part of the child's development. I often tell parents that I want children to be able to relate their feelings and why they did that action, so that when they're adults, they can avoid conflict. I used to say a long time ago, I didn't want to open up the newspaper or website news page and see one of my students in trouble with the law because they didn't know how to manage themselves. Um, when a student does something or has a reaction to something that was not the correct reaction, I like to sit with them and have them think about it and reflect on what happened. And that way, we're not just saying, don't do that again, but I'm explaining to them why they did it or asking them why they did it and kind of working through their emotions and regulating them. Also, need to take into effect as an educator the student's prior experience and their culture. How they might be reacting might not be the way that my culture would react. I've had students from who have a Vietnamese background that they don't respond back to the adult. They're very calm and very quiet and will not respond in the way that I necessarily would have wanted. That interaction is different. A student who's had a traumatic background might not respond in the way that a child who has been in a full family environment. So we need to, as educators, we need to take time to invest in our students and make sure that they have a feeling of acceptance and love and belonging in our classrooms. Some cons of SEL are educators and administrators realize that there is a need for it, but they might differ on what kind of program or curriculum to implement in a school. Another reason for hesitance for starting it is the cost of programs. They're very expensive, and some of them will only let you use it for a year, and you have to renew it. So, again, every year you're having to come up to pay that cost. And also, the stakeholders in the community, the families in the school, or the people outside the community don't understand, or in the community, excuse me, don't understand the need for it. So they might think it's just kind of like a frivolous extra program. Some challenges of SEL, again, are the cost, finding a program that represents the school's population, their culture and backgrounds, finding time to implement the program, and getting everybody in the community on board with the program. On this next slide, I have some artifacts from the graduate program, a couple of papers that I wrote. You can click on those and watch them. This is how the artifacts of how I use SEL in the classroom. I will take books, and if we have a problem with bullying or I have a problem with somebody not getting along, we have a great resource room where I can go and pull different emotion books on social emotional awareness and read those to the class. That way, using literature as well as dealing with the social emotional learning. We also have a program at my school called Virtues Program, or Virtues in Practice. And Virtues in Practice is it's a Catholic program started in Nashville. Every month we have a different virtue that we highlight. This month is mercy, and I can use these in different ways in my classroom. I can refer back to the board. So I have a bulletin board set up, and then each month as we move on to the next virtue, I take them down and hang them up. These are tied to saints in the Catholic religion, and I use that by saying, like, this saint had showed honesty in their life. How can we show honesty in our life? So it's just something that I can refer to every day, or I can go back to it and say, remember when we talked about generosity? Well, if you have something, being generous and sharing it with your friend, or I can go back to talking about honesty, but something that I can reference. This goes on a 3-year cycle. So this year, these are the ones that second graders get, and next year it'll cycle through to a new set. Eventually, everybody in the whole school will go through all of the different virtues. This is a recap of what I just talked about how I use SEL in the classroom. On this slide, I discuss how I use the Virtues in Practice program, and also our administrator talks about these on a daily basis during morning announcements. We also, down here, I talk about the literature that I use to talk about SEL in the classroom. And again, I have a great resource room where I can go and pull different books to be used throughout the year. My last slide for SEL are my references that were used throughout this. And again, just knowing that children really need to learn the 5 areas of social emotional growth. And it is very important that we as educators find a way to integrate that into our daily classroom.